A very good morning to one and all present. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Sorry we got late by 5 minutes with some technical glitches. So we're here today to discuss crystal gazing, the future of law. Warm welcome to everybody. And I'd first like to welcome our esteemed speakers for this particular session. We are joined by Mr. Madhukar Bhagat, who is a Commissioner of Income Tax and an esteemed officer of the Indian Revenue Services. He has been actively involved in the enforcement of various economic laws such as the Competition Act, the Income Tax Act. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. Truly, as a lawyer, I'm really looking forward to this conversation because I'm joined by two people who dabble with the law on a frequent basis, but actually are not trained lawyers. It's truly a very, very interesting session that we are entering into. And we are joined by Dr. Navneet Sharma, who is the Dean of IFM Business School at Vijayabhumi University. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us and for taking out the time to be with us this morning.
Thank you, Kritika. A pleasure being here.
Thank you so much, sir. So before we start, I'd just like to talk about this forum a little bit. So this is a series of knowledge sessions that we have started for school leadership members, and this is a special series that has been curated by Vijayabhumi University, which is India's first liberal professional university. During the course of this presentation, Dr. Navneet Sharma will briefly highlight about what are the different offerings at Vijayabhumi University and how we are applying the liberal framework to legal education in India. First, I want to invite our esteemed speaker, Mr. Bhagat, to share his perspective on the future of law and law enforcement. So, if you may throw some light on the growing role of technology in creation and opportunities in the legal field and the birth of new offenses and how that is creating new opportunities for lawyers as well as the individuals like you who are interfacing with law continuously. So what do you think is the new set of opportunities that one can see in the legal field today? Over to you, Mr. Bhagat.
Thank you, Kritika. Thank you a lot. Now, first, let's understand what technology, and particularly the information technology, has a role to play in the society. Let me just take a step back. The human growth and the human civilization has been all about how have we accessed, augmented, and utilized certain basic resources. Before I go to the core topic, I'm just taking a step back and trying to understand and making others understand how this has shaped up. And these core resources have been, apart from food and water, has also been energy and information. Now, if we just have a look at the industrial age, it was all about how we shifted to another form of energy. And if we talk about the information age, then from the physical form of storage of data, we have moved to a situation where we have the digital data. Now, the computers provided as a means through which we could access and use and store the digital data. Through the internet, through the www, we could reliquid this data in a wide area. We could access it. Through search engines, we could further enhance our capabilities and we could filter the data which we required. We are presently in the information technology age where our capability of storing, accessing data is not just limited to text data or the audio files or to some video files also, but in fact, the live transaction of human activity can be recorded, can be transmitted, can be stored. And this has been possible because of our capability to store data has enhanced. It has become much cheaper in the data centers to store data. Apart from that, with the internet becoming more and more advanced and the technology for transmission of the data becoming more mature, with the 5G about to come, we have a situation where large amount of data can be physically transferred, and that includes the video data. And this webinar is one of the examples of this. Now, let me take you to a presentation. Kritika, can you help me with the uploading of the presentation? I had uploaded it. Has it come up?
Yes, sir. 1 second. I don't see, sir, the presentation's yet not been added. If you may just add it.
Okay, just let me check. Or otherwise, what I can do is I can go without the presentation if it is not available.
Sure, sir.
Okay. So I think there is some technical problem in loading of the presentation. What I'll do is I'll go ahead. Now, the first aspect is that as we move on to the area of information technology, it is giving birth to a lot many activities. Now, these activities, human activities, which are unprecedented today, are eventually going to take shape of a number of legal measures tomorrow. If I see, for example, the e-courts. Now, till yesterday, the phenomenon of e-courts was unheard of. But today, with this COVID crisis, we are moving towards e-courts. Here we can see very easily that earlier we just had the repositories, legal repositories. We just had, the uploading of the applications. But today, even the whole transactions which is taking place in the courts, which is the legal proceedings, is getting recorded and it is getting validated. Similar, more transactions are going to take place in the future also. Now, let's have a look at the various areas of administration where we are using technology. We are using technology for the purposes of not only for making applications, for variety of citizen services, for legal compliances also. Citizens are already making legal compliances in form of filing of returns, in form of legal proceedings which are taking place. What's the next level? Now, if I want to go to the next level, then we have to see that eventually a lot of net meetings is going to take place. A lot of transactions on the web is going to take place. These may be ranging from e-commerce. These may be pertaining to delivery of services. These may be pertaining to a variety of legal compliances, procedural compliances, and the law will have to change to accommodate all these compliances. The law will have to be formulated for the purposes of privacy of the data, for the purposes of protection of the data, for localization of the data. But it's not going to remain just over here. New areas of challenges are going to emerge. And these areas will be where we have the violation of the social order. And one such area will be the cyber crimes. We are already seeing that we have the issues of cyber attacks, we have phishing attacks, we have vishing attacks, we have the cyber frauds, we have the ransomware attacks which are taking place. In fact, today in the newspaper, I was reading that the MHA has issued guidelines that the net meetings which are taking place through Zoom are not very safe, and there are certain norms which have been given for making it better and safer. Now, what's going to be the result of all this? A lot of violation of law is going to take place. And therefore, there is going to be birth of a totally new area of law and enforcement, which is pertaining to cyberspace law. Because so much of the human activity is going to move over there. Now, an extremely important area which is emerging today is cybersecurity. Now, cybersecurity is one area where the lawyers will have to be totally abreast and totally clued into what's happening in the society. We will have enforcement agencies which will exclusively be dealing with the areas of cyber violation of the laws. We may even have courts which are exclusively dealing with it. Today we have economic courts, and tomorrow we may have cyber courts. The challenges before the enforcement agencies will be identification of these cyber violations. And for this, information and cybersecurity experts and application of that knowledge will be very critical. Second area, which will be extremely important from enforcement perspective, will be the cyber technology pertaining to cyber forensics. When we talk about law, law is all about, capturing of the evidences, preservation of the evidences, and presentation of the evidences. And from the perspective of the lawyers, knowledge of cyber forensics will be extremely important, just as forensics was in the previous age. Now, if we have a look at the modern economic laws, what we were about to come, we are seeing a number of new areas which are emerging today. Some of these areas are, for example, the market regulation laws, which is the competition law. We are already seeing the Googles and the large telecom companies and the Amazons, which are falling within the ambit of this particular law. Second area, which is extremely important, is pertaining to insolvency in the bankruptcy code. This is a great opportunity because a number of cases are already coming up in this particular law, which was created in 2016 to hasten the process. We are already seeing that our country in the world is passing through a phase of contraction, and India, the economic growth is going to slow down. The banking industry was already facing a lot of stressed assets. And in this unprecedented COVID crisis, we are going to see a large number of concerns, companies, partnership firms, which are going to be further stretched, and they are going to face insolvency proceedings. Among the regulatory laws, the telecom regulatory law, as well as the capital market regulations were extremely important, and these are representing the future. In the taxation and economic laws, we can easily see the international taxation and transfer pricing to be an emerging area. In fact, at one particular point of time, income tax cases were nearly 10% of the overall cases and 20 to 30% of the government cases. And in that personal taxation, DTAs, the international taxation and transfer pricing is going to be very, very important area for the lawyers. GST is another area, and arbitration proceeding pertaining to the corporates is again an extremely important area where we can see a lot of opportunities emerging in the future. Now let's see how technology is going to permeate in the workspace of the young lawyers. Now, first of all, as I already mentioned, we have the e-courts.
Okay, so in the meantime that Mr. Bhagat joins us in again, I would actually request Dr. Navneet Sharma here to jump in at this point of time and talk to us about what is the future of legal education, and also what is the importance of interdisciplinary learning in legal education and why this is the way forward. If you may throw some light on these aspects, along with how Vijay Bhumi University is addressing these issues. So if we could hear from you, Dr. Navneet Sharma.
Right. So let me give you an example from where Mr. Bhagat was giving an instance of enforcement of an economic regulation. Incidentally, Mr. Bhagat has been actively involved in the investigations of economic offenses, and I've been an active researcher in this area. So therefore, let me cite an example, concrete example, to tell you what kind of skills are required, whether to investigate or to advise your clients on an economic matter. And I'll take an example of Competition Act. So let's say if there is an allegation on a company that it is abusing its dominance, which means it has certain market power and it is abusing its strength, its dominance in the marketplace. So when such a matter is investigated, the law essentially requires determination of dominance, which is necessarily an economic exercise. A lot of data is collected in order to see that what is the relevant product market and what is the relevant geographic market, in order to see that this company is dominant in this particular market. This entire exercise is economic. So a lawyer may not be carrying out this exercise, but works with economists all the time in order to ascertain dominance of a company in a particular market. Just to give you an instance that how a particular point of law requires legal and economics understanding. Similarly, when a law enforcer like Mr. Bhagat investigates a matter, there is necessarily involvement of reading up the balance sheets and the variety of statements, financial statements of the company. That is a must. That must take place. So therefore, whether you are a lawyer advising your client or a law enforcement person, you must know how to really do this. Only then your process of advice, your process of investigation can go further. Particularly from the law enforcement's point of view, the forensic investigations are now very, very frequent. All the enforcement authorities use it. In that, not only the substantive knowledge of certain skills, but also the technical know-how of carrying out forensic audit becomes very, very critical. And based on this, order is passed by an authority or an appellate body or Supreme Court, wherever the matter is concerned. So with this example, you can see that how, even though we are talking about enforcement of a particular law, but we are constantly using other branches of knowledge, such as economics, such as accountancy, such as business strategy, in order to really deconstruct the economic offense, investigate it, and take it to its logical conclusion. So this is what I would like to say to complement what Mr. Bhagat was saying. I think he's back, and perhaps he can continue his thread of conversation, which he was continuing. Kritika?
Navneet ji, thanks a lot. Am I audible?
Yes, very much.
You're very much audible.
And I had uploaded the presentation.
You can start.
Okay, so basically, if I want to have a look at what are the areas which are permeating in the field of legal space, which are extremely important for the lawyers, the tech areas, one I said was we can see that the practice of e-courts is going to be a norm now. And therefore, the lawyers have to abreast themselves with technology. Second was the area of cybersecurity. Now, what are the norms of cybersecurity? Because we are going to have so many violations of cybersecurity norms that lawyers who are not aware of information security and cybersecurity will be finding themselves totally helpless in representing this case and will lose a huge opportunity. Third area, which is extremely important for lawyers, is cyber forensics. Now, evidence is all about acquiring the evidence, which the enforcement agency is doing. Second is preserving the evidences. And then the third part is presenting the evidence before a judicial forum. Now, lawyers have to understand which evidence is maintainable and which legal evidence, digital evidence, is not maintainable. And there comes the knowledge of cyber forensics. I would recommend to all the young budding lawyers that they read a book which is called Computer Forensics for Lawyers by Dale Craig. Now, this is a very interesting book which helps you to understand computer forensics from the perspective of the basics. Now, technology is also going to permeate in the various areas of work. One such area of work is going to be our research and analysis in the legal field. We already see that the All India reporters and the thick books are the things of past. We had the CDs, then we have the online reporters, and now we have the powerful search engines. The talk is not complete without AI and ML in these days. And artificial intelligence and machine learning is coming up in a big way. Sometimes there is a fear that is it going to take the job of the lawyers? They are going to give predictions, etc. Now that may not be correct, but the fact is that definitely it is going to assist the lawyers in sharpening and honing their own research and presentations. We may see areas where our own pleading and drafting will be assisted by AI and ML. I was also mentioning that there are certain economic laws which young lawyers must be taking a look as offering a lot of litigation in the future. As Navneet ji was saying, competition law is one area where big cases are already coming up. I was mentioning about the insolvency in the bankruptcy code, which came out in 2016. Already the company was facing in the banking industry a lot of stressed assets in the NPAs. And now with the unprecedented COVID crisis and the recession which is taking in the world, we are going to see a situation where a lot many cases are going to come. Telecom sector with the 5G is again going to be in the focus. Capital market regulation is definitely going to be there. Among the economic laws, if I see the income tax laws, I was mentioning that at one point of time, nearly 10% of the cases were pertaining to income tax. There are 27 tribunals, 18 high courts, and the Supreme Court, which is dealing with these cases. Now, apart from that, in the income tax, we have the areas such as international taxation and transfer pricing, which has huge possibilities. In personal taxation areas, double taxation avoidance agreement is one such area where we don't have young lawyers who have sufficient knowledge. GST's area. Apart from that, people should also heed areas such as corporate arbitration. So this was just a brief which I was about to give as to how upcoming areas of technology are going to permeate in the law, which are the areas of economic offenses. And definitely the lawyers must have a cross-discipline understanding, whether it is understanding of accounts, whether it's understanding of technology, whether it is understanding of administrative procedures. And as I was mentioning, most importantly, about how cyber transactions are taking place, cyber security and cyber forensics. So in brief, that is all about, in brief, crystal gazing aspect of law and technology. And over to you, to Navneet ji and to Kritika. If you want to move to the next round of crystal gazing in the Q&A session, we can go forward.
I think, sir, as a young lawyer, I would totally agree with the views that you have shared. I mean, it is so important for everybody to understand that law never operates in isolation. I mean, there is always a factual context to the law. There's always a sector that it's operating in, and it's very essential for lawyers of tomorrow and even today to understand pragmatic aspects of the context and the sector that it's operating in. And as long as mixing that and intertwining that with our understanding of the law. Additionally, I think what you're saying about technology makes so much of sense, because I mean, let's just see what's happening in the courts today. I mean, for the first time in the history of the Indian courts, because of this outbreak of this pandemic, something that we had never thought before has happened. Most of the high courts, the Supreme Court of India, all of them are functioning through video conferencing. And Supreme Court of India, for the first time ever, has a complete e-filing system.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, which clearly means that it's really required for the lawyers of tomorrow to have a good grasp and a good foundational knowledge of technology, because that really seems to be the way forward and the place where maximum opportunities are going to rise. So at this point, I would request Navneet sir to join in the conversation and talk to us a little bit more about the future of legal education. And if you could just pick up the threads from where Mr. Bhagat has left them and tie them into, with what is happening in legal education, and briefly touch upon what Vijay Bhumi School of Law is doing.
Well, in order to understand the future of law, I think Mr. Bhagat has already set a very, very good context to it, that how the technology is proving to be a game changer in this. I would also only like to add just one particular aspect, that what you call the industry 4.0, the kind of market disruptions which we are seeing. I want to add to the technology. Technology aspect has been wonderfully elaborated by Mr. Bhagat. But the impact of that, let us spend a minute and how the markets are changing. So you never had Olas and Ubers and Swiggies and Zomatos and Netflixes of this world, basically. These are all technology-enabled businesses. Because the nature of the business is changing, the nature of the firm is changing, the nature of the industrial organization is changing, it is changing the nature of jobs. It is very important to understand the shift in the markets because the jobs are changing. Legal profession is no stranger to this change. The legal profession is also undergoing a massive change, and which has been already very aptly explained that how the application of technology, economics, accounting, business strategy into law, integration of all these into law is changing. So therefore, as a university, when we look at the education, our fundamental concern are two. First one is to help a student discover what the passion is so that there is no mismatch. What you can see in this picture, the person in this picture is a dancer by nature, but she is stuck in an air traffic controller's jobs. So that is first thing we look at. The second is how do we prepare people for these careers. The learning pathways could be very varied. Mr. Bhagat and I both are not lawyers, but we have dealt with law. I have dealt with it academically, Mr. Bhagat professionally. So therefore, career paths could vary, and we must know how do we. So therefore, these are two central questions: how do I discover myself, and how do I prepare myself for the chosen path?
Yeah,
That is why the entire question it becomes very important. That what is the future of the law? And how can people who are attending this webinar, the school principals, because they are producing the future of our country. So therefore, the young kids also need to be accordingly prepared in terms of their skill sets. One important thing, I think this slide will add a little bit of humor to this entire conversation, where two people are chatting. The interviewer is asking, why did you leave your last job? And the interviewed person is saying, the company relocated and did not tell me where. Such is the nature of business and job. The jobs are disappearing overnight. So therefore, the skill sets which are required to survive also need to be differently looked at. Before we go back to Mr. Bhagat, I want to draw your attention to how the work is changing, including the legal work. The entire nature is changing. Instead of hierarchy, increasingly there is flattened structure. Instead of fixed working hours, there are work from home and flexible working hours. So the entire discourse is changing. In such a situation, what has become extremely important is, as educators, we don't restrict ourselves to knowledge and skills, but we take people to next level of attitude of change, facing the change, attitude of embracing the change, and attitude of learning constantly. And before I stop, I think this is one slide I want you to look at carefully. This is the slide. So this is Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences framework. This framework was given by a Harvard professor called Howard Gardner. And Gardner said that, intelligence of a person need not be looked at on a 1 or 2 parameter basis. The intelligences can be looked at from 8 different perspectives. So one could be very good at linguistic verbal, which is supreme skill in a legal professional, right? The second, intrapersonal, again, very important to see involved. Existentialist, logical method, logical ability is very critical in order to not only discover, uncover, but also build a legal argument. Logical ability is very important. Interpersonal skills, again, very important, because you must know how to deal with others, how to gel with others, how to extract information, how to use it, how to advise. These skills are central to legal professional. Naturalistic is another skill where a person's ability to connect with nature, animals, environment, all of this could be very critical. Visual, spatial, and bodily kinesthetics, and musical rhythmic. So these are different intelligences, Howard Gardner said. And as a university, to answer your question, Kritika, we we allow in development of various intelligences appropriately, so that people can not only discover what they are passionate about, but also develop expertise in specific areas of law. Over to you, Kritika.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing that insightful presentation. Now, I think what I'd like to really get into, and I think this is the most interesting part of our conversation today, is I'd like to get into a question answer round. At this point, I'd also like to inform all the people who are attending this particular webinar. If there are any questions that our audience members have, please post it into the chat box. And in the next part of the presentation, we will take all your questions individually. So, sir, my first question is that what are your views? Do you think that technology will take center stage tomorrow in the legal profession?
Kritika, a very natural question is that will technology take a center stage? And will the lawyers will become redundant? Or will it be such a situation that a lawyer cannot survive without the aid of technology? Now, technology is going to be very important. But as far as advocacy is concerned, as far the legal knowledge is concerned, that's also going to be the key requirement of an advocate. The only thing is, as human society changes, human activities changes, the shape of the law changes. Now, for example, Information Technology Act didn't come back, 50 years ago, like the traditional laws. It came recently. We are already seeing the data privacy bill. It's already there in the anvil. And this is going to take place as and when and more of, such seminars are taking place, legal proceedings are taking place, e-courts are taking place. And there is a legal validity to what all the transaction is taking place. Therefore, data privacy bill is going to take. Therefore, we have to understand that technology will be a force multiplier. Second, we have to understand it is also going to enhance our own capabilities. For example, research and analytics, predictive technology as to what is the chances of success in this particular field. Technology at the lowest edge is also going to replace some degree of human force where, the routine drafting work, this human being will like to delegate to technology. We have the search engines. But to say technology in immediate near future in the coming 10 years is going to replace the advocates, totally no. Because, advocacy involves something very unique, and which is understanding of the human beings, the empathy factor, the emotional quotient, and that at present technology will not be able to replace. Therefore, to conclude, technology is going to be extremely important, but technology is going to be an aid. It's not going to be a replacement to law.
Navneet, sir, would you like to add something here?
I think, of course, technology is going to be the central aspect of our lives, our work, including law work, advocacy skills, investigation skills, teaching skills. This is all pervasive. But in order to amplify the importance of technology, I think I would like to add two very minor points. One is that the entire application of technology has to be understood in our socio-economic context. And so therefore, the way different parts of the society function, different kinds of organization function, different kinds of businesses function, that context also has to be understood in order to fully understand the application of technology. For example, how technology is making this webinar possible, understanding of that becomes very clear, because when we superimpose this fact with COVID-19, because of the restraints of COVID-19, the need of webinars and experts coming together to engage in conversations become very important. So likewise, we have to, and similarly, being a lawyer, you will appreciate, Kritika, that every lawyer's appreciation and continuous understanding, continuous evolution has to happen along with the Constitution. Unless you understand the constitutional values, The constitution is like your framework, like your boundary. Unless that is understood, not only technology, but other aspects of law may be missed. So that also something I would like to add here. Over to you.
So I think the next question that I have is again something that will be very pertinent for our audience here is what is the role that school educators must play in, increasing the awareness of the students to these growing opportunities in the legal field? If I may hear from the both of you what you feel about the role that they must play.
Kritika, it's going to be extremely important. The various schools of law, they have to be open-minded. They have to be, nimble-footed as far as incorporating in the curriculum new areas of human experience, of human growth. And technology is one such area. Now, unless lawyers have a good understanding of various applications, whether it is a judicial reference system, whether it is a technology for accessing the e-courts, or other such areas, once they launch themselves in the profession, they'll always be inhibited. Now, if I see the curriculum of certain Western universities, the top-notch universities, they have, LLM degrees pertaining to something like cybersecurity in the field of law, which covers areas like cybersecurity, cyber forensics, intellectual property rights, etc. Second aspect, as far as legal education is concerned, is that, see, legal education cannot stand in isolation. It has to have a very close correlation with the industry, and industry at all the levels. The lawyers are not only the lawyers for the sake of big corporates. They are the lawyers for the sake of small firms also, and for the individuals also. And when we talk of the legal education, what are the needs, the legal needs of these particular areas has to be fully enmeshed as far as the legal education is concerned. So that's it from me. And Navneet ji, you would like to add something to it?
Navneet sir, would you like to add something?
I think if I can draw the attention of all our participants to Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences framework, I think what schools can do is to allow identification of various talents in their students, such as the ability to argue, ability to speak, ability to write, ability to frame an argument, ability to present it before the audience. I think wherever they find initial indications of such talents, schools can promote them through various measures such as debate competitions, such as writing competitions, such as moot courts, such as variety of manners in which structured or unstructured evolution or nurturing of such talent can take place. And most importantly, I think the learning or the sensitization vis-a-vis the Constitution of India is something which is very, very critical. I mean, one may choose to be a lawyer or not. Let us leave it to one's own choice. But of course, the direct benefit that one may really become a great lawyer, but the indirect benefit is that you will certainly produce great citizens. So note about it. So, inculcation of the spirits of Indian Constitution is something which a great service the school leaders can perform.
True.
Thank you.
So, I have a slightly elongated question for the both of you to answer next. The question is, generally nowadays, whenever people think of law, there's this stereotypical image that is there in our mind of, Sunny Deol shouting in, that movie Damini in courts and Tari Tari. And that's what, we've become synonymous to. And I'm afraid to say, the first time when even I told my parents that I wanted to do law, a lot of, my extended family members and, the other relatives were like, is she sure she wants to do law? I mean, it's quite, like they have this stereotypical image in their mind. So, from that, I want you to throw some light for our participants on, what are the unique career tracks that are actually available to students today post completion of their law degree. And if I may just add another question to that, for these unique positions that are being, created today, what are the different various combinations of, subjects that students can study along with law, which makes them suitable for these new career opportunities that are opening up? So if I may hear the both of you on this question.
Thanks, Kritika. That's a very interesting take. True. I mean, that's a very hackneyed and the stereotype image that we have. And in fact, it is not correct. I was trained to be an engineer. I entered the civil services. And during the course of that, I was handling at the CBDT a lot of litigations pertaining to direct taxes in Supreme Court, High Court, and the various tribunals. And that's how I was, out of my own violation, compelled to take law as a course and to study law. Now you see, there are so many opportunities, even in government and outside, pertaining to law. And once I studied law, I realized that there is no area of human activity which is bereft of, actually speaking, which is bereft of the ingress of law. And there lies the unique opportunities. Now, if I'm to talk about certain areas of opportunities pertaining to economic law, as I was mentioning earlier during the course of my brief talk, competition law is one such area. In income tax, we have the international taxation transfer pricing law, which is very unique. Corporate law, that is also going to throw up a lot of opportunities. We have the bankruptcy and the insolvency code. This is also going to throw a lot of opportunities. And the young lawyers should seize this opportunity. Even in government, we already have the situation of lateral entry, which is coming in. If we see the Ministry of Law, we have the ASGs who are, people who have been practicing law, who are eminent lawyers. We have legal advisors in the Ministry of Law, and there is a number of posts of them. In corporates, we have the positions of manager taxation, who are in very senior positions. We have the counsels who are handling a variety of laws. And these are not just, the typical lawyers who are doing the practice of the civil or the criminal laws, or who are doing the chamber practice, which has been the trend in the past also. So a lot of opportunities over there. And as I mentioned earlier also, they should, apart from having a basic understanding of the law, the young lawyers must acquire one or two areas of extreme proficiency in the niche areas. Merger and acquisition is one such particular area. Some of the areas I've already mentioned. And must acquire some basic skills, in whether it's in the field of technology, whether it's in the field of accountancy, understanding accounts, whether in the field of economics. That is going to give them the edge in the coming future. Thank you.
Absolutely, sir. So I think, that's a very good point that you have made, that, now actually, even in the legal profession, we are moving from, having this phase of generalist to specialist.
True.
So even in law right now, we're looking for more and more people who have an understanding of the niche areas of law, which includes also having a very pragmatic or practical understanding of the nuances of that sector, and having a good understanding of how the law operates in that sector. I totally agree with you. Navneet sir, if we could hear something on this point from you.
I think we need to understand, having understood at some length the evolution of law, let us try to spend a few minutes on understanding what kind of jobs are emerging. The first point, which Mr. Bhagat has already very clearly made, is that the future jobs in law field will not be unidimensional, so to say uni-skill dimensional basically. So your core lawyering skills are of course important, but your specialization will become very, very important. He gave us an example of certain universities having LLM in areas like insolvency, LLM in intellectual property resources, LLM in law and economics. So these are some of the instances. These nomenclatures also give us an indication what is the future, where the things are moving. So, for example, now if you want to be, there are economic frauds all over the place, where in terms of either in a life of a company, life of government, or wherever in the context of procurement, variety of contexts in which economic frauds take place. And then there is a question of fraud detection, and then fraud risk professionals are there. So such professionals essentially require a host of skills, the core lawyering skills, but along with that, forensics, computing, a little bit of artificial intelligence by which they can use the softwares in order to deal with a heap of 1 million emails or several thousand SMSs, and then dig out what is relevant for them. So these kind of skills will become very, very critical in times to come. Similarly, in matters like mergers and acquisition, again, very, very complex. Let me spend a half a minute on this example now. A merger or an acquisition can have, even within the same jurisdiction, it can have variety of jurisdictional complications, but also territorially there could be multiple jurisdictions involved in a particular merger or an acquisition. So you have to handle this complex architecture of operations, you need people who not only understand law, but who can deal with multiple jurisdictions, multiple cultures,
Absolutely.
multiple business stresses. So,
Absolutely.
and the life cycle of a merger sometimes could be something like 2 years, something like 3 years sometimes.
True.
So you need to have that persona, that mental agility, that mental strength, that you can handle complexity and help your client steer through such a maze. So this is where the future of legal jobs exist, and we need to prepare people for such future. Over to you, Kritika.
So this brings me to my next question. I mean, since we are very fortunate to have Mr. Bhagat with us here today. So when I was in law school, so I did my law at National Law University, Delhi. So a lot of students and a lot of my batchmates were, very, very interested in joining the civil services.
Yeah.
So, sir, if we could invite your views on, the avenue that, that you can even pursue civil services, that you can appear for the examination post the law, because from what I heard from my friends who appeared for this examination, if you have done law, then definitely there is a benefit to it. And they say that there's a twofold benefit, because A, as a civil servant, you really need to know the regulations of the country. And B, they also said that while they were writing the exam, I think one of the options you can choose in the mains is law. So it definitely makes it a good option. So if we may hear from you on that.
Thank you, Kritika. I mean, I can say that you're talking to the right person on this, because I've authored around 10 books for preparation for civil services. And in fact, every year I talk to around 1,000 or more aspirants who have taken civil services or taking civil services. Law is one of the most beneficial fields, I would say, for purposes of preparation for civil services. First of all, law is an optional which is permitted in civil services. Second is that even if you don't take law per se, you find that the course of law is quite vast, and I don't want to go through it. You can take so many other options which are closely interlinked. For example, public administration. Now, that is an option which has so many areas of overlap. Even if an aspirant takes law, we find in the area of polity of general studies, there are 4 papers of general studies, and 1 paper has got substantial questions from Indian polity. Now, there is a huge overlap between what we have studied, the constitutional law, the parliamentary proceedings, and all those which we have studied in the law schools, and what is actually asked in the question. Most importantly, law, as Edward Coke said, reasoning is the heart of law, and it makes, the lawyers logical. Second area is the ability to express oneself to write. And the civil services examination tests these 2 abilities, logical thinking as well as the ability to express oneself. Now, once I talk about the interview stage, which is a very important area of personality test, there also the confidence that one gets, having practiced mood courts, delivered public talks, being logical, having the perspective of the administration, having the perspective of the law is extremely important. And the value that law imparts, as I said, in administration is absolutely immeasurable. There is not a single area of administration, public administration, which does not emanate from law, be it income tax, be it GST, be it the police, be it the administration, or any area you name it. And that is essentially emanating from one form of the law or the other. And that daily we are dealing with the delegated legislation. So law as a subject and lawyers as in civil servants is a winning combination. Over to you, Kritika. I hope it answers your query.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much. I think it's really important that you highlighted that, because I know a lot of people today who actually want to appear for the civil services examination and do the amazing work that all our officers like you do at the services and serve our country so beautifully. So I think this brings us to the end of the session. And if I had to summarize, being a lawyer and hearing from two people who have had so much of experience and interface with the law, I would definitely say that the law degree is not a restrictive degree. It's actually an enabling degree.
Absolutely.
It opens a multitude of opportunities for you. So one is the conventional option of just appearing in courts. But nowadays, there are a number of options. If you're interested in joining the services, if you want to become a judge, you want to join the judiciary, if you want to, join one of the law firms today, if you want to join one of the, multinational corporations, their legal departments today, then it's a fantastic opportunity. Even for somebody who starts a business, which may not necessarily be directly related to the law, an understanding of the regulations of the country are very important. So that is also an option that's open, getting into policy, getting into politics. Then you look at most of our politicians today, either they've been practicing lawyers at some point of time, yes, or they've had a law degree. So definitely it creates an oyster of opportunities for students to choose from. And I am so glad that today we had two people who were talking about the importance of the interdisciplinary learning, because this is what we are doing at Vijayabhumi School of Law. I mean, we're the only university and the only law school that is offering an option to students that along with pursuing the BBA LLB program, they can actually choose majors and minors from other fields such as artificial intelligence, data sciences, design thinking. They can do business specializations. They can do specializations in law subjects. So definitely, I think this is what new age legal education should look like. And these are the skills that will be required by the lawyers of Industrial Revolution 4.0. Thank you so much, Mr. Bhagat, for taking out the time to be with us today. It was surely a very, very enriching conversation for all of us. Thank you so much, Navneet sir, for joining us from the campus of Vijayabhumi University. It was truly insightful to hear your insights on the future of legal education. Thank you so much to both of you.
Thank you so much. Pleasure being here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Stay safe, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today.